pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. A reminder to everyone, please silence your cell phones, and if you'd like to speak on any particular item, please bring a blue slip to Miss Jessica. Roll call, please, Miss Kathy.
Yes, sir. Mr. Angelpont?
Here.
Mr. Barris?
Here.
Mr. Barty?
Here.
Vice President Brain?
Here.
Mr. Burley?
Here.
Mr. Guillory?
Here.
Mr. Hayes?
Here.
Mr. Landry?
Here.
Mr. Lewis?
Here.
Mr. Marcantel?
Here.
Mr. Richard?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Stelly?
Here.
Mr. Tremonti?
Here.
And President Abshire.
Here.
Everyone's present.
Thank you, Miss Kathy.
You're welcome.
Item 4, presentation of a retirement certificate to the Honorable Kenneth Stinson, Mayor of the Town of Vinton, in recognition of 27 years of service to the citizens of Vinton and Southwest Louisiana. Mr. Barris, I will turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. I got elected 2016, and we were getting into the groove, you know. January, get sworn in. February was kind of cool, you know. Then March, me and Kenny Stinson became best friends. The flood, and we've had a couple other little interesting things since then, but to work with someone under those circumstances, those conditions, you know, you learn a lot about the person. You learn a lot about the leader he is of his town. You learn about how much the people who work for him respect him and look up to him and appreciate him. I don't think I could find anybody in Vinton to say anything bad unless his sand prices are too high. But that's probably the only thing.
I can find it.
But no, I'm going to read this to Mayor Kenneth Stinson, presented by the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury on this 17th day of June 2021. In honor, recognition, and sincere appreciation for 27 plus years of exemplary and dedicated service to the citizens of the town of Vinton and Southwest Louisiana. Congratulations and best wishes on your retirement, sir.
That's all right. That's all right. I'll talk loud. Wes and I were talking before the meeting about, you know, serving here, and you know, some of these years he was surprised at the amount of years. I served 14 years on city council, 14 years as mayor. I really didn't have a lot of interaction with the parish until I became mayor. And when I did, you know, Mark McMurray was administrator at that time, and he and I had a good relationship. And then Brian came along, and we've had an excellent relationship between Brian and Dane and all the police jurors. You know, I started with Brett Clement, so I'm dating myself. And then Ellis Hassan, you know, and then Ray Taylor, and now Judd. And I'll tell you, we have been well blessed on our end with fine police jurors. And over that time, there's been a lot done, a lot of relationships between the parish and the cities, especially the town of Vinton, the Road and Drainage Trust Fund, the gaming pool, you know, that all came into existence. And it's just all good. For many years, I kept hearing that east-west thing, you know, and it just would drive me crazy. So I did my best to try to quell that and put it aside, because nothing happens if we don't all work together. You know, rising tides lifts all boats. So with that being said, I appreciate this very much. I appreciate Judd. Appreciate everybody here, because and those that came before you, because I would come, and I will share this, is after I got elected, I came to a police jury meeting, and a couple of police jurors were here, and they said, "Oh, you getting a check tonight?" I said, "No, I just came to see about things." And I made a mental note that if that's the only time we come, that's wrong. So I tried to come, as y'all know, I try to come occasionally, just to, especially at Road and Drainage Trust Fund time, and I find out who's on that committee. But anyway, thank y'all very much.
White. One more. 3, 2.
Kenny, before you leave, I know the president's right here. If I'm going to have the floor, Mr. President, for just a minute. I just want to say, I read and I always like reading the religious column from the First Methodist here in Lake Charles, and today was talking about being yourself, and that epitomizes you. What you see in Kenny Stinson, you see in Kenny Stinson, and I've shared this with you on the phone of your approachability. I've always felt easy just talking with you and approach. You have that about you, and 28 years says it. But you are who you are, and we appreciate you, who you are.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks a lot.
Mayor Stinson, I believe we have a few comments.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Landry.
Mayor,
Ms. Landry.
yeah. No, you're not gonna say something. The thing about, you did always come down here to get that check, but I'm gonna tell you, I wouldn't have rather given it to anybody else, because I know you really appreciate it, and I can tell you out of anybody, that guy right there made darn sure he come up to everybody, he shook your hand, told you thank you, and I don't care if it was 50,000 or $500,000 or what it was, and you could just tell that, I know y'all appreciated it, and he made sure to let you know. I'll tell you one thing though about your service, it was outstanding, and if we could get public servants like you in Washington, this country wouldn't have any problems, I can tell you. So if you can figure out how we can do that, then we would all be much better off. I hope you enjoy your retirement.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that.
Anyone else? Well, Mayor, I'll just take a second to say I had the opportunity to work with you over the last year during COVID and hurricanes and ice storms, and it was always a pleasure. You always brighten the room. So.
I didn't mention the executive policy group. That was
Yeah.
I'm hoping I can slip out July the 1st without having to go to one of those.
Thank you. All right. Item 5, there is no action necessary. Item 6, consideration of approving payment of all current invoices and advise regarding monthly budget to actual comparisons. I have a motion by Mr. Andrupont and a second by Mr. Barty. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries.
Move on, 7.
Item 7, consideration of approving the minutes of the regular meeting of the police jury dated May 27th, 2021. I have a motion by Mr. Burley and a second by Mr. Barris. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item 8, I need a motion to adopt. Consideration of adopting a resolution approving the following abandonment application. 1234 Big Woods Starks Road in Ward 5. I have a motion by Mr. Marcantel and a second by Mr. Richard to adopt. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item 9, there is no action necessary. Item 10, I'll need a motion to approve with conditions.
To approve with conditions.
Consideration of adopting an ordinance approving the following rezoning application. 3630 Highway 27 North in Ward 6, rezoned from agricultural to light industrial to allow industrial development. I have a motion by Mr. Burley and a second by Mr. Guillory. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item 11, consideration.
Move on, 11.
I need a motion to approve with conditions. Consideration of adopting an ordinance approving the following rezoning application. 1880 West Lincoln Road in Ward 3, rezoned from agricultural to light industrial. I have a motion to approve with conditions by Mr. Hayes and a second by Mr. Barris. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item 12, I need a motion to
Move
approve
to
with
uphold
conditions
zoning.
or to deny rezoning. Consideration of adopting an ordinance approving the following rezoning application. 7698 Sidney Leger Road in Ward 8, rezoned from agricultural to light industrial to allow industrial
President,
development.
I'd like to correct that, please. My motion was to accept, but my motion is to deny the rezoning. is
Thank
my
you,
motion.
Mr. Stelly. I have a motion to deny rezoning by Mr. Stelly and a second by Mr. Tremonti. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item 13, consideration of adopting a resolution approving the Louisiana Compliance Questionnaire required in connection with the police jury's 2020 audit. I'll need a motion.
Move on 13.
I have a motion by Mr. Landry and a second by Mr. Stelly. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item 14,
Move on 14. with all
consideration of
bullets.
adopting a resolution approving the suspension of the parish's policies or ordinances prescribing procedures for procurement to advertise for requests or for proposals for the following. A, emergency debris removal services in various Calcasieu Parish drainage laterals. B, emergency debris monitoring services in various Calcasieu Parish drainage laterals. I have a motion by Mr. Hayes and a second by Mr. Barris. I believe we have some discussion. Ms. Faith Hooks. Please state your name and address for the record.
Faith Hooks, 751 Bayou Pines East, Suite A, Alliance for Positive Growth.
Thank you,
Th-
ma'am.
Thank you. We just wanted to come out as a organization and give support and thank the police jurors and thank Calcasieu Parish administration for even putting an item like this on the agenda to get work started as quickly as possible, because it's just a hot topic in the community. We're trying to do our part to, let public and let, business owners know that something is being done and that the parish is open to feedback and communication. And so based on the fact that, last week, no one even knew where you guys stood, and this week you have an agenda item from the Alliance for Positive Growth, we wanted to thank you for moving on it and taking care of our residents. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Hooks. I believe Mr. Guillory.
Alan, is there a time they're gonna start on this about, on cleaning up the drainages?
President,
I'm sorry?
Giller was asking me a question. We're okay to
Yes, sir.
Okay. This item allows us to start a expedited proposal / bid process to procure the contractors to do the work. At this point, we don't have a firm timeline to start. This is to get the contractors in place to be ready to start as soon as we wrap up some permitting and other things. We feel like those things are progressing really well at the moment. So again, I hate to give you a timeline, but things are moving, and we need this item to be able to have our contractors here in town ready to go as soon as some of the last hurdles we are able to get over them.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Barris?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just for clarification, the timeline on this was not a week, right? Like, nothing that we learned between last week and this week led us to this decision. Am I right?
I'll answer that.
Thank you, Mr.
Can I answer that,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
President? That is correct. This has been worked on since last October, maybe late September, and I know we've been notifying jurors of that. This May 17th flood has obviously exacerbated some issues, especially in the East Calcasieu area, but I want to be clear, nothing on this is related because something happened a couple of weeks ago.
That's
This
what I'm
is,
trying to clear up.
We've working feverishly on that. You have to follow federal, not just guidelines, rules, and we wish it were quicker, but it's totally in line with that. We feel very good about it right now. Our chances of, from the get-go, making this part of a reimbursable package from FEMA. And so I appreciate you asking that, Mr. Barris.
Thank you, sir. I yield back, and if I need something else, I'll ask again. Thank you.
We know.
Mr. Landry?
Thank you. And whoever asked that last question, that was mainly what I was going to say, is that this has been going on for months and months. And it hadn't started from a lack of effort on the parish's part, nor a lack of knowing where the blockages are, because I think within less than 60 days after the hurricane, all of those spots have been identified. And, I'm not up here to throw rocks at anybody because I don't even know all the names of the folks that were involved. But the public has a right to kind of know what the holdup has been. And, sometimes I ought to just shut up, but I just can't. I end up saying probably more than I should. But, you know, FEMA directed the parish that they had to go through NCRS. That's what you had to do. Now, we're talking about a bill here. This isn't $10,000 to clean this up. You're talking about over $100 million. So when the person that's going to pay for that tells you this is how you have to go about it, you're going to do it exactly like they tell you to. So months go by. This is a lengthy process. And, of course, all these spots had been identified with aerial footage. I don't know if it's satellite or exactly how y'all get that done. It's a plane that does it. And you go through this long process. You do all the paperwork like you're supposed to. You turn it in. Well, the pictures weren't good enough. Well, they were good enough to us, but you know what? Hey, if they say they're not good enough, then we had to hire somebody to go take pictures on the ground. That's not easy to do. That just wasted more time. There again, if the government that's paying tells you that's what you got to do, that's what you do. And so then that took place. Then after that, all the paperwork goes through the program that we were supposed to go to. And then you get to the end, they tell us they don't have any money. After they've been telling us they had millions and millions of dollars to fund this program. So then, we don't have any money, we can't fund it. So then after that, now it's going back to FEMA for FEMA to pay for. Why it went through all of that? Hey, that's beyond me. I don't work in Washington. It makes absolutely no sense. But that's what happened. And look, I know y'all are working with some great people, and it's not their fault. And they're doing all they can to help us. I understand that. And by me saying that, I don't mean anything negative against them. The problem's in Washington. And we got the runaround. That probably cost us at least 4 or 5 months, without a doubt. And I know y'all don't want to say anything, but I'm going to say it. That's what's happened. And now, look, most of all these people would have flooded anyway, whether those canals are clean or not. You get 21 inches in 9 hours, you're going to flood. And I flooded. My home and my business flooded. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not blaming the city, the parish, the drainage board. Hey, it was an act of nature. It rained a lot. We live in Louisiana. The ground's flat. It runs off slow. The tide was coming in. You had a lot of stuff working against you. That's the facts. Whether, it's not pleasant. It's not a good thing. You just repaired your house in a hurricane and then it floods on top of that and then you start it all up. Hey, believe me, I know it's not good. But it's something we got to deal with. And I appreciate y'all working through this. I know it hadn't been easy, but we're going to get there. It's going to happen.
Mr. Bean.
President Abshar, that you may want to comment on this as well. I think it is coincidental, but in a good way. Today, President Abshar, Dick Grimion, and I had the opportunity, as well as some officials from the city and the Southwest Louisiana legislative delegation, Cameron Parish, and even Jeff Davis Parish, to talk to the FEMA administrator of the United States in a room about these issues. And it was a very good discussion. Governor and his staff were there, and every one of us, including Mr. Abshire, myself, and the cities, and Cameron Parish as well, all emphasized how critical the drainage lateral debris removal is and pleaded to please help us with the funding for that. The good news is this process, if you approve it tonight, we feel as we speak, even though it's been a roller coaster, as Mr. Landry said, will result in some action that allows us to get reimbursement that y'all would probably recognize as similar to the road debris. It's not quite the same, but after all of that, we learned really recently, to go to Mr. Landry's comment, with NRCS saying we don't have the funding. That wasn't terribly shocking. But he told us that in the beginning, and then they changed. But the point is, this process now, we feel much better about getting some results and getting it going. And we talked today to the person who is in charge of the whole thing. And so I just want to make sure, since it's on the agenda, that y'all are aware of that.
Any other discussion? We have a motion by Mr. Hayes and a second by Mr. Barris on all bullets.
Move
Motion
on
carries.
15.
Item 15, consideration of adopting a resolution approving an amendment to the development agreement between the police jury and Sasol North America to allow a settlement in lieu of a construction project for the Mossville sewer obligations. I have a motion by Mr. Burley and a second by Mr. Barty. Mr. Andropon.
Is the parish, are we going to incur any expenses with this agreement?
I'll ask Alan, and you or Terry want to cover that one?
I'll give you that. This is part of the original agreement with Sasol. And when they were coming and everything was being worked out. Up front, one of the things that was discussed was because of their buyouts in that area, that the homes that would have been on the sewer system in that area that the parish you operate would leave it in a state of not really enough homes to support the system. So in the agreement, ultimately, there was a proposal or a line item to say, we're going to deal with that. It amounted to a project to try and convert the system. Over the years, that's been unattainable for various reasons. So now we've reached an agreement with them for a dollar amount that will give us the funds needed to finish that when we're able to get through the last remaining hurdles on that, believe it or not. So it's a good deal for the parish, and we appreciate Sasol in this case coming through and sort of finishing on the original agreement.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Motion carries. Item 16, consideration of adopting resolutions as requested by the Human Services Department. Item A, approving a memorandum of understanding relative to the operations of the Louisiana Workforce Development Area 51. Item B, approving a grant agreement as part of the 2020 Continuum of Care Program competition. And C, approving an application to the U.S. Department of the Treasury for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. I have a motion on all bullets by Mr. Guillory and a second by Mr. Smith. Oh, Mr. Guillory, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. On item C, that is a great program, and I was going to just ask Mr. Terrick if you could just come and let us know where we are on the program as to how many people maybe have applied. And
Tarek Polite, Director of Human Services, Calcasieu Parish Police Jury. So on ERA 1, we've had about 727 households to apply for rental assistance. We have processed about 125 of those applications, and we've paid out approximately $1 million thus far on ERA 1, ERA P1. This is for ERA P2, which will authorize us to apply for additional funding that has been reserved for Calcasieu Parish as part of the American Rescue Plan.
thank you, Mr. Terrick. I appreciate that. Thank you. I yield back, Mr. President.
Sir? Any other discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item 17, consideration of adopting a resolution approving a contract between the police jury and ACOM Technical Services for substantial damage determination services in response to the May flooding event. I have a motion by Mr. Smith and a second by Mr. Lewis. Any discussion? Any objection?
I'll introduce you after.
Motion carries. I just think you can't hear. Item 18, consideration of authorizing the parish purchasing agent to advertise for bids for the following. A, request for proposals for a claim management risk management information system software. B, request for proposals telephone communication system for the Calcasieu Parish Public Library System. C, Animal Services Emergency Incinerator Replacement Project. D, Calcasieu Emergency Response Training Center Hurricane Repairs Project. E, Burton HVAC Generator and Improvements Project. F, Mosquito Control Hurricane Repairs Project. I have a motion on all bullets by Mr. Barris and a second by Mr. Hayes. Any discussion? Any objection? Motion carries. Item 19,
Move to
consideration
adopt.
of adopting a resolution to be forwarded to the family of the late Chris Duncan, former mayor of the city of Sulphur. I have a motion by Mr. Andropont and a second by Mr. Marcantel. Mr. Angelpon.
Thank you. For those of you that didn't have an opportunity to know Chris Duncan, the thing that sticks out in my mind is his love for sulfur. But he loved his family, he loved his country. But prior to running for office, you'd see Chris at all different various functions, and he ran for city council, was engaged with the mayor. He was everywhere. I mean, he was out with Public Works. If they were digging a water leak, he was out there. And when he got out of public service, nothing changed with the guy. He was still engaged. And so I ask all of you to keep his wife, Angel, and his 3 children in your prayers. And as a tragic loss, the picture in the obituary, just so lifelike of him. It was really good picture. So anyway, he will be missed, and thank you all for supporting this.
Any other discussion?
Adjourn.
Move to adjourn.